Hey everyone, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Today we're not going to be discussing the map update. You can just watch my previous video, and the situation in the last couple of days has developed pretty much in the same direction, with the major change being only that in a video I talk about the area around Mariupol and Berdyansk mostly lighting up on fire in the south. But now, in the recent days, there has also been an expansion of the territory that's been covered by the Ukrainian strikes. And now, our area around Melitopol, which is closer to the west, is also on fire. So that's kind of the big thing. But obviously, what we're going to be talking about today is a major change in how this war is perceived in Russia, and it is the drone strike on Moscow. Now, drones are obviously nothing new when it comes to Moscow. There was already a couple of drones flying in when they were shut down. A couple of drones flew in and then they ran out of fuel, so they landed down. Then there was the Kremlin strike, obviously, but this time it was a full-blown attack by the drones. It might have been done by Ukrainians, it might not have been done by Ukrainians, maybe it was local partisans. We don't really know so far, but whatever it is, it was excellent. I'm going to treat this as it was an operation designed by Ukrainian intelligence just because I think it was an extremely smart one, and we have seen Budanov talking about that there is going to be some kind of retribution against the attacks on Kyiv quite soon. It might not be true, but so far this is the best that I have. Now, what do we know on facts? So around the morning on the 30th of May, a couple of dozen drones, where estimates vary from like 25 to 35. The precise number is not yet known, but they started flying all over Moscow, causing mayhem. People started posting videos of both drones flying over their houses and air defense systems working to shut those drones down. My favorite theory of everything that was said at that point was that it was just Russian drones that were coming back to Moscow. And it's because a majority of these drones that were flying, they have this backwards design. I don't know the precise technical name, but it's when the drone has at front like the small wings, and then at the back the wing is a larger one. So like when you look at the drone, it feels that it should fly one way, but it's actually flying kind of backwards, as you can see on the video. But besides the joking part, I at that point reserved my judgment on what was the causes of this, because it was still not clear at that point how many were there, how many of them were shut down, was it successful, how many of them, like why some of them apparently didn't carry like a lot of explosives, so there was no major explosions reported. You know, we've seen when first Shahid drones appeared over Ukraine, when they were even shut down, the explosions were quite large because they do pack a punch. Additionally, I really couldn't understand, was it worth it or not? Because Ukraine has not been really known to execute a lot of terror tactics. And on the first glance, it did seem that this was some kind of like a similar tactic that Russia has used. The smart Ukrainian tactics is they took just the outlook, just the package of it, and they wrapped it up and actually executed a lot more comprehensive and smarter operation than that, which just completely showed the genius and understanding of this war and the Russian society on such a more deeper level from the Ukrainian authorities. This has been supported by the claims of Zaluzhny during the before the war, when he was asked, well, how would you win the war against Russians? And he says like that first and foremost we need to essentially bring the war to Russia, in a sense that maybe Russians shouldn't fight in Russia, but that the Russian population should be completely aware that the war is happening and they're all involved. And beyond that, there is also the understanding of all the military doctrines from the Western powers. Like, one of the major reasons why I really dislike Western powers prohibiting use of their weaponry on the territory of Russia is because every single country's doctrine, whenever they get into some kind of a total war scenario, the first order of business is, as fast as possible, move the war to happen not on territory of your country, but the territory of your enemy's country. But what was the smartest part? What was the majority? It is actually what the drones did, how they did it, and what was the reaction? Because roughly we can separate this pot of Putin's area around Moscow into three major groups. One is Putin and his kind of direct associates. It's like people who are executing on his orders. Second is major kind of oligarchs, the power players. You know, Russia is a kleptocracy. There is a lot of these people that have some influence in Russia that could have influenced Putin in one way or another, but because they are bound by him, by the dirty money that they earned over the many years, then this is the people around there. And then the third one is a more general Russian population. Now we can break it down further, but for this context, we are interested into these three groups. These drones that were set out, they were sent out to attack a very specific area around the Moscow city. It's just outside of the Moscow city. It is an area that is so-called Rublyovka. Rublyovka is an area where the group number 2 that I described, and also some people from group number 1, the ultra-rich. But the important part here is because we're in a capitalist society, right? For us, if a person has money, that's not a big deal. In this case, because Russia is a kleptocratic state, this is like this area here. It's not like that you can just buy a land there. It's not a free access area. It's like the den of evil. It's like the complete amalgamation of all of the corruption of all things that Russia was having and got stolen from. So all of the stolen money from Russia and all of the people that don't appear on camera, that were just stealing behind the curtains, that were smarter than Putin himself, they lived in that area and can actually have an influence on Putin, especially when we're talking in the context of war. So that's the only people that kind of matter in the Putin's Russia, because it's a court. As these drones were flying around, these people started panicking, and Russian air defense, and I'm going to get back to it, was shooting down, and they were panicking because they heard explosions above their heads. And the third part of the population, the Russian common folk, instead of like being, oh my God, what would be like happening in the West, and that's kind of one of the biggest representatives why the Western analysts are so wrong so often, they were like, not that's like, oh my God, we're being attacked. No, when they saw that the people in that area are being bombed, the Russian population went online on all of the forums and all of the discussions, and they started laughing. They're saying, yes, please, why there was so few drones flying in that area? Please burn that place to the ground. It was a sense of a weird unity of a Russian population that went around a lot of these public network spaces where people discuss their opinions, that it is so good that these bastards are finally getting what they deserve, and they should deserve even more. And a lot of people, beyond them doing that, they didn't blame this whole situation on Ukraine. Ukraine was almost non-existent beyond the propaganda circles that tried to essentially whitewash this whole situation and blame everything on Ukraine. Beyond those propagandist channels and like super Nazis, majority of the normal population in Russia were just expressing, yes, it's all Putin's fault. Now, we shouldn't be looking too much into this. Don't buy too much into words, because Russian general population has very low power in Russia. What matters is that people that got attacked, they do have power. They do have power to influence Putin. They do have power to influence a lot of the other important people. So while this probably not help in initial sense to say that, hey, Putin, you should stop this war, it will definitely move them towards a direction and understanding that they are not safe. That's why having drones with little to no explosive power was completely understandable. Like, if they're shut down, they're dealing no damage. That's why there is no civilians were injured. So these drones served an amazing purpose. Some of them actually hit the targets inside of that area. By no chance, people in that area. I want to underscore this importantly, because this is a huge difference from how Russia uses drone tactics and how Ukraine uses drone tactics. That people in this area are directly responsible for the war. Many of them are. And the other ones could influence Putin to stop it. And if not stop it, then at least they're in a position to push and press Putin and his surrounding and actually threaten them with consequences to make sure they're protected. Which means that even more air defense now needs to be moved to Moscow to protect their shiny asses. That all of these air defense assets that already were happening around Moscow, around the military assets, nice, but what about these guys that all think that they're super important and them all are like super billionaires? There is also like Putin's own residence in the area, but that one is kind of well protected. And another point about the air defense systems. We saw some of the pictures of the damages that were dealt to some high-rise buildings and whatnot. And as it turned out that this damage was actually not dealt by drones. It was actually Russian air defense systems that hit the buildings themselves. Most of the damage that were dealt to the normal population was dealt by the Russian air defense systems. So to that, I can only say that, well, Amnesty International should potentially write a report on Russia that Russia is endangering a civil population of Moscow by locating their air defense assets inside of a city center. And finally, why does it matter for a bigger picture? It is obviously, as we already discussed, that this brings the understanding that the war is happening on the Russian soil, that these people that actually can influence Putin, they are not safe anymore. Right before they were like, okay, there is a war somewhere is happening, but we have our own area here. We have our own stuff that is happening area. We are never threatened. Now they understand that they are. There is a big chance that they are really threatened. So they should be worried. They should be worried. And everyone should be worried in Russia. Wars are never one-sided. You cannot just go into another country, kill the population in that country, and then expect nothing back. That's not how wars work. I already mentioned the doctrine of the Western powers. The war will always come to the starter, to the aggressor, if it doesn't succeed. And the most important part is, whatever is happening now, it's gonna get only worse for Russians. It's going to get only worse. We think right now that the escalation kind of against Russia is high. But believe me when I say it, it's going to get a lot worse. And this is the Russians that need to understand this. They have no way out of this. They've escalated the situations to a point where there is no backpedaling. They are not winning this war. They can't win this war. And now they don't have an escalation potential. So they escalated already maximally. Like they don't have a way to go. As I explained many times, even if they use nuclear weapons, it doesn't solve problems for Russia. It just adds even more of the problems to Russia. Like it's people, I don't want to go into that discussion again, but generally speaking, people think that Russia sends nuclear weapon and then that's it. Like, we get Japan 2.0, Ukraine gives up and war is over. That's not what's going to happen. That's not how it's going to happen. Ukraine has received more damage than any nuclear weapon would require to do. But so generally speaking, nuclear weapons will not solve anything for Russia. It will just make things even worse. But for the strategic picture of the war, this creates what a lot of the good generals should do in a warfare. They should start providing dilemmas. What Ukraine is right now doing for Russia, it is creating a lot of the dilemmas. And dilemmas are, you have prepared all of these defensive positions in the south. You know that we know that you're going to want to defend it here. But you forgot that you have this front line. You forgot that you need to have this place defended. There's going to be more and more places that are going to be trying to distract and shape Russia. Because Russia, remember, this is genius, again, of Ukrainian army, because they could have done this drone strike, I'm pretty sure, earlier. But now everyone is aware that counteroffensive is about to begin. So what does Russia do? Does it move the troops, the air defense assets to protect Moscow, to defend these golden-ass boys, or get another drone strike? It's dilemmas that Ukraine is forcing on Russia to choose between bad and a worse scenario for them. And the problem for Russia is that there is no bad or worse scenario. It is terrible and disastrous. And to be honest, it is not completely clear which one is which. And that's a good show of a genius command on Ukrainian side. Thank you so much for watching this, guys. Please join our Discord so we can discuss current events, news, what kind of version of events seems the best one, and just generally join the conversation. Please also consider buying me a coffee to support this channel. Also consider supporting Ukrainian military directly on the link below. Also, please write me your ideas for what kind of merch you would like to get, because we have the shop kind of set up, everything is ready. We just need to populate it with what kind of ideas and merch you would like to see. And that's something would be very cool for you, because you get a piece of item that you find very, very nice, that you like. And 50%, the same as for this channel, I will definitely do the same for shop, and 50% of the profits of the shop will also go to support Ukrainian military. Slava Ukraini, guys, love you all, and I'll see you next time.